Let's talk about the psychology of workplace manipulators and, even more importantly, how to outsmart them. So let's be real. Your office might have a coffee machine, ergonomic chairs, and a ping pong table, but no workplace is free from that person. And you know what I mean. You know the one. Always dodging accountability, whispering behind the scenes, and somehow convincing everyone else that you're the problem. Yep, workplace manipulators. They come in all flavors, and they thrive when people don't recognize their tactics. So by the end of this video, you will know why manipulators act the way that they do, what science says about them, and have 5 key strategies on how to shut them down when they start their manipulation. So ready to reclaim your peace of mind? I sure am, so let's get into it. Let's dive into what I call the manipulator's playbook. So here's 5 classic tactics that manipulators use, and they're surprisingly predictable once you know what they are. Research in personality and social psychology review showed that they rely on the same handful of strategies over and over again. Because why? Well, they work. So here's 5 favorites that you've probably seen in action, and now you can keep top of mind when this is happening to you. So the first tactic is gaslighting. They deny, they distort reality, or they deflect it to make you doubt your memory and your sanity, right? They will say something like, that conversation never happened, and you know that it did. Or they'll say, you're so overreactive, you're overreacting again. How many times have you heard that? I know I have, so keep that in mind when you are dealing with a manipulator. The second tactic is guilt tripping. So they exploit your kindness or sense of duty. They'll say something like, if you really cared about the team, you'd handle this for me. So don't fall for their guilt trip. The third tactic is triangulation. So they pull others into conflicts, or they start spreading rumors, which is even worse. So they'll say things to you like, everyone agrees that you were the problem, but I'm just trying to help. And you know those people, you know the ones that are spreading rumors because they're spreading rumors to you about other people. So if you're talking about other people to you, they're talking about you to other people. So be careful of that. A fourth tactic is playing the victim. So they adopt this poor me personality to avoid accountability. They'll say things like, I'm just under so much pressure. I can't expect to be keeping track of everything. And you know the people, they're always the victim. Everyone's always against them, right? They're always the ones when they get passed up for a promotion or an opportunity. It's like, oh, poor me. And they just really lay it on so thick, right? And the fifth tactic is they charm offensive. So they butter you up. They give you that feel good part of their personality. And then they sneak in demands, right? So they'll say things like, you're the most talented person here. Could you just finish this project by tonight? Or they'll say things like, you're so much better at this. So use it back at them to get an advantage. But those are 5 tactics that I'm sure if you sat back and thought about it, you're like, yeah, I know who those people are. So here's a quick statistic. A 2018 UK study found that 58% of employees have been manipulated by a colleague or a supervisor, at least in the past year. So I don't think any of us, I would say that that statistic is probably higher, at least in my world, because when I read this study and took a look at all of the details and the tactics, I could think of a whole boatload of people that utilize them. So think about that when you're evaluating some people. Not that you want to be judgy, but there are people in your life that maybe are not good in your life, right? So let's talk about a little psychology 101. What makes these manipulators tick? So manipulators, they're not necessarily plotting world domination, but they are driven by the need for two things: control and validation. So according to Dr. George Simon, author of In Sheep's Clothing, they often lack authentic self-esteem, which is key. They fear being exposed as being incompetent. And third is they feel entitled to special treatment. And especially when they get into leadership roles, can be even more severe on all three of those. So this combination creates a mindset where deception just feels justified. But there is a dark triad connection. So psychologists often cite 3 overlapping personality traits that make manipulation a lot more likely. So the first one is this Machiavellianism, which is strategic, cunning manipulation and exploiting others. The second is narcissism. It's inflated self-importance, entitlement, or that lack of empathy. And the third is psychopathy, which is that impulsivity, callousness, and that lack of remorse. I think I know even more people that have a lot of these traits, right? So in a meta-analysis in personality and individual differences, they reviewed data from 16,000 employees and found that people high in this dark triad, in those dark triad traits, they were 3 times more likely to engage in manipulative workplace behavior and 2.5 times more likely to sabotage colleagues' projects to boost their own standing. That happens all the time, right? I think that is a higher number. But in other words, they're not just annoying. They could be a real risk to morale and productivity. So outsmarting the manipulators is something that you need to start putting into your strategy. Here is a step-by-step playbook on the key areas to focus on that have at least worked for me. So here's your action plan for staying sane and staying strong. So the first and most important thing is you want to document everything. Keep emails, messages, and notes from meetings. When gaslighting starts, your records will be the thing that saves you, and I promise. And it's one of those things that sometimes you even need to go back and look at some things that are going on because you even forget because you get into that rabbit hole. The second tactic is to name the behavior internally. So instead of blaming yourself, which I think we all do, right? We all take the blame. Let's start labeling what's happening. This is triangulation, or this is guilt tripping. It helps you stay calm, objective, and a little bit more positive about yourself and your situation, right? Because you could say to yourself, this isn't me, it's them. A third tip is set clear boundaries. So you're not obligated to rescue them or comply with unreasonable demands. So try these scripts. Say something like, I'm not comfortable committing to that. Or something like, let's discuss this when everyone is present. Especially if it's something that affects your whole team, right? Then you get them exposed to others. And a third one might be, I'll need that request in writing. So oftentimes I use this tactic a lot, the writing request, or I use it as a follow-up even. So if I'm meeting with someone that I know has these traits, after I meet with them, if it's a one-on-one, I will reach back out and be like, thank you for your time today. Great discussion, and it was enjoyable to meet with you. These are the things we covered. This is the process forward, or this is, action plans. I hope that I captured everything correctly. Can you please take a look and let me know if I've missed anything? Bam. If they don't respond with anything, you at least tried, and you at least have that captured. And then if they do respond and come back to you, save that in your files from tip number 1, because that could cover your bum, especially if you get in a situation with them, especially if it's an HR situation. So save that stuff. And tip number 4 is don't take the bait. Manipulators, they love drama. Keep responses factual and neutral. So you gotta get your emotions out of it. That is the hardest part because we get all jacked up, right? So instead of saying, how dare you say that about me? Try something like, that's not accurate, and here's why. So stick to the facts no matter what, because when you start bringing your emotions in and you need to do something about it or you need help, it's really difficult because it makes you look like you're just as bad as where they are, and you don't want to be that way. A 5th tip is build your support network. Having allies, those trusted coworkers or mentors, it makes it harder for manipulators to isolate you. So go to people that you trust, not in gossiping, but those that you truly know will have your back no matter what. A 6th tip is escalate strategically. So if behavior crosses the line, and sometimes it does, and you need to do something about it because it's not healthy for you, it's not healthy for even your team. When it crosses into harassment or sabotage, you gotta get HR involved. I hate getting HR involved. I really do. It's not that they're not good people, but they're always looking out for the betterment of the organization. So sometimes it's really walking on eggshells working with them, right? But when you keep your documentation and you keep your emotions out of it, it really can be beneficial to you. So when manipulators nearly tank a team, I have a great story for you guys. Manipulation happens everywhere, and it happened to me many times. I actually had a boss that took credit for all of my work. I'm not saying that because I had a big ego, but it was true. They withheld key information and they blamed me for delays in projects. And on top of that, my boss, who was a female, she also blocked me from promotions. So every time I would apply for a more advanced position, it would get blacked out and I wouldn't even get called by HR. She'd gush over my ideas in private, and then she'd I don't want to say privately, publicly, she would trash me. And she would trash me in front of HR and higher leaders. And I was doing a really good job, or at least I felt I was. And other leaders within the organization had commented, had written me recommendations, things like that. So does something like that sound familiar to you? Well, that was gaslighting and a lot of triangulation, right? So this is how I fought back. I began documenting every assignment, and I sent follow-up emails to every conversation, our one-on-ones, just reiterating the discussion and asking for a response if I misunderstood or I missed something. So that was really important. And I saved these on file on my laptop, and personally, I would send myself a personal email to my personal inbox and hold them there too, because you just never know, right? You never know if somehow in the background, they're looking to get rid of you because they feel like you're a risk and they shut everything down and then you lost all of your documentation, right? So keep it in 2 places, and one of them personal. I also built alliances with colleagues who witnessed this behavior and were willing to speak up for me. And I calmly confronted my boss in meetings using facts and not emotion. And that was probably the hardest part because I was really ticked off. I wasn't depressed. Like some people will get depressed or they put themselves like that they're so afraid of losing their job, and then they get like really down and they won't speak up, and then you see the drain on people. Well, I'm not that person because I'm not a victim. I do get very emotional, and I know when I feel it because you just feel it in your chest, right? So you gotta like get rid of that. So eventually HR intervened, and a lot of it had to do with other people that I made aware that I trusted, that made comments to HR, made comments to others that this was going on. And my boss ended up getting reassigned. So they didn't get fired, and I wasn't looking to get her fired, and I'd never want to see anybody fired. But I don't think she was a good fit for the role anyway. And hopefully the organization just found a way that we can kind of separate the situation and get the right people doing the right jobs and right people in the room, right? So the moral of the story is when you shine a light on manipulation, it loses its power. And more importantly, you, yes, you could do this in a way that does not threaten your job, integrity, or your professionalism. So you are not the problem. And I'm here today to remind you about that, because oftentimes we feel that it's our fault or it's something that we did, right? Manipulators often succeed because they tap into your good qualities, your empathy, your reliability, your desire to be fair, and your desire to grow in the organization. But here's the truth. You are not too sensitive. You are not imagining things, and you are not obligated to play their tactical game. So your awareness and boundaries are your greatest tools. So here's a few quick facts and maybe some references, is that 75% of employees report witnessing manipulation or bullying in the workplace. And dark triad traits that we just talked about, they're linked to lower job performance and higher counterproductive behaviors. And finally, manipulative dynamics often cost companies up to 25% or higher of productivity due to turnover, conflict, and total disengagement. And that came from the Harvard Business Review. So some final thoughts here is workplace manipulators thrive in confusion. When you get clear about what you see, document it and set unshakable boundaries. You need to reclaim your energy and your confidence. So remember, you are not alone. It gets to the best of us, and they're out there, and you are also not powerless. So if you found value in this content today, or you thought it was something useful to someone that you know, please share it, please subscribe, and we will see you all on the next video.